New year, same extra value meals
Meals
at McDonald's.
So now, get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8. For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
I got your pizza. Hut!
We should order pizza every game.
Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name is Blake.
Blake.
What?
Do you want to go to war, Balake?
I don't got the radio.
Rio. Hey, Aaron. Hey, Aaron is here. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day. Not to be in a cult. Oh, dear God, no, not again. It's happening again, you guys. All right, what are we here to talk about? Guys, over the last week, I've done a couple videos, and there's been a lot of uproar locally about Scientology buying up more and more motels and hotels in the area. And I've heard mentions of even up in Tarpon Springs. I get messages almost every day from people up in Tarpon Springs saying, have you heard about all the property Scientology is buying up in Tarpon Springs? There's a big concern locally, in the Clearwater area specifically, but the Tampa Bay area generally, that Scientology seems to be staging some sort of a next bigger phase in their takeover of the area. Here is what I think is happening. And this is where it's like, oh my God, it's happening again. I don't know how many people realize that presently Scientology middle management and international management is located in California. Now, international management doesn't really exist anymore. David Miscavige had it dismantled. But the management base, the int base, the secretive base outside of Hemet, California, that has been the location of Scientology's international management, that base still exists, and staff members still do work there, even though international management doesn't actually exist. Middle management is located right in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, in what they call the HGB, or the Hollywood Guarantee Building, or on the first floor. It's got the L. Ron Hubbard Life Exhibition. That is Scientology middle management. But back in the day, when Scientology first came to Clearwater in 1975, international management, or more accurately, I should say, middle management, was located here in Clearwater, Florida. And it wasn't until years later that middle management, I knew I needed to close my signal before I went live every single time. All right, there you go. Here's what I believe is happening, guys. I believe David Miscavige is moving middle management back to Clearwater, Florida. Not again, guys, not again. This is what I suspect is happening. Okay, Mike Brown. You guys know Mike Brown. Mike Brown is the one who first planted this seed in my head. And he did this after the video last week. One of the videos I did last week showing all the new living quarters that David Miscavige is purchasing for tens of millions of dollars. He keeps snapping up new hotels and motels up and down US 19, our largest corridor in Clearwater, Florida. He said, I think Miscavige is moving middle management back to Clearwater. And as we know, David Miscavige has decided he does not want staff members who work in Scientology organizations of different echelons to live on the same premises, to live in the same apartment complexes. So Scientology has the Hacienda Gardens here in Clearwater, Florida. They have the Sherwood Gardens, and they have purchased 3 other giant living quarters. I think he's moving middle management back to Clearwater, and it makes perfect sense. So after Mike Brown planted this seed in my head, I was like, okay, who else can I really ask about this? Who would have been there in the early days when Scientology first came ashore in Clearwater, Florida, and would have also been there when management was moved out to California, and would understand why that happened, and what the likelihood is that Miscavige is reverting back to the way it was. Because guys, remember, one of Miscavige's big things is constantly convincing Scientologists that he's continually making everything more and more the way it was under L. Ron Hubbard. So, I mean, David Miscavige has this real, he's like finally tuned this skill of convincing Scientologists that ever since L. Ron Hubbard died, despite Miscavige's own best efforts, evil, dirty, rotten, no-good, scoundrel, suppressive persons have infiltrated management at all levels and have altered altered L. Ron Hubbard's wishes and hidden orders and hidden directives and covered up all this stuff. And despite Miscavige's best efforts, it's taken him all of these years to finally figure out what L. Ron Hubbard really wanted. And reverting back to the way it was under L. Ron Hubbard, back to true source, is always the next great solution to fix Scientology's problems. And what could be a bigger back to source cue for Miscavige than convincing Scientologists that what L. Ron Hubbard always really wanted was for management to be at Flag in Clearwater, Florida. And that this is the new big reason why Scientology has been struggling, because there are so many managers in middle management who don't actually know what perfect on-source L. Ron Hubbard tech and policy is, because they've never been to Flag. They've never been to Flag. For those of you who don't know, Flag is the name of the Scientology base here in Clearwater, Florida, where I live. It is considered the most perfect Scientology base in the world. It's supposed to be the place where Scientology technology is delivered perfectly. It's supposed to be Scientology policy, even without reading it, because L. Ron Hubbard's policies have been brought to life at the Flag land base. And yet it is actually true that most of the Sea Org members who work at middle management have never been to Flag. And so anyway, I called Janice Gillum Grady. Janice Gillum Grady worked directly for L. Ron Hubbard from the early days of when Scientology was still located on the ship, the Apollo ship. This is when L. Ron Hubbard first created the Sea Organization back in 1967. When he was, this was before he actually went into hiding. But this is when he started fleeing from the authorities in the UK. And he created the Sea Organization, and then he created Scientology's upper confidential levels, the operating Thetan levels, the OT levels. He created the Xenu story, the body Thetans, all that wonderful stuff. Janice Gillum Grady worked directly for L. Ron Hubbard during all those early years. She was a child. And then she continued to work at the highest levels of Scientology management through the time that Scientology came off the ship, came to Clearwater, and then when management moved to California. Okay, so here's what she explained to me. The only rationale for middle management moving to Los Angeles is because international management was at this secret location near Hemet, California. And so it was wanted that middle management be in proximity to international management, and there really was no greater rationale for it other than that. And this really verified what Mike Brown had the seed that he planted in my head in the first place. He said, now that the international management structure does not exist at the INT base, there is literally no reason for middle management to be located in Hollywood. And then what he said sort of reminded me of something that never made sense to me when I was in the Sea Org in Los Angeles myself. Because when I was in the Sea Org, I worked on L. Ron Hubbard Way. I did not work at middle management, which is only a few miles down the road. But even working on L. Ron Hubbard Way, we were still living in our own bubble, if you will. We didn't have to leave L. Ron Hubbard Way. You live in the building, you work in the building, you eat in the building. You could go a year without having any reason to leave L. Ron Hubbard Way. And it felt, well, it felt similar to how it feels working in Clearwater, Florida, because Clearwater, Florida is such a small, quiet town, and Scientology owns so much. And even though you don't live and work in exactly the same location, you take buses to and forth. And I guess what I'm saying is it felt protected from the outside world. And that is what David Miscavige wants. David Miscavige wants Sea Org bases to be protected from the outside world. You do not join Scientology at a Sea Org base. Sea Org bases are not in the business of recruiting new people into Scientology. They're in the business of delivering Scientology's upper confidential levels, for the most part. So what never made any sense to me is that the Sea Org members, the Sea Org members who worked on L. Ron Hubbard Way, we lived in our own little bubble. We weren't even allowed to walk off of the base unless we were in groups of 3 or more. It never made any sense to me that for some reason we had to be protected from the outside world. But the Sea Org members who worked at middle management were right there on Hollywood Boulevard in the middle of a sea of wogs.
Now, I know
No, wog is a not nice word in many parts of the world. But in Scientology, wog just means non-Scientologist. That's all it means. And, the Sea Org members, the Sea Org members who worked on L. Ron Hubbard Way, even though we were protected from the outside world, non-Scientologist world for the most part, at least our jobs required us to actually interface with public paying Scientologists. Because those orgs on L. Ron Hubbard Way, they exist to deliver Scientology to paying public. So we may not have been actively participating in the outside world, but we were directly interfacing with Scientologists who did interact with the outside world. And even we, in a certain way, had to be protected from the outside world. And yet you have the Sea Org do their jobs do not require them to interface or interact with any non-Scientologist at any time, ever. And yet there they are, right in a building, right on Hollywood Boulevard, where literally any rando can stand outside the door and wait for one of Scientology's most senior administrators to accidentally run into them. I mean, guys, even Streets LA, it was either Streets LA or Jessica Palmodessa. I think it was Streets. On one of Streets' live streams, this was in the earlier days when he would spend a little more time outside of the HGB, the middle management building. Without knowing it, he almost ran smack dab into one of the most senior Scientology officials in the world, Tracy Danelovich. Tracy Danelovich is David Miscavige's direct personal representative to oversee all of middle management, which is today essentially international management. Okay, and that would never happen in Clearwater, Florida. In Clearwater, Florida, you would never just accidentally run into one of Miscavige's deputies. Things are much more secure here. Things are much more protected here. So anyway, to make a long story as short as possible, I highly suspect that David Miscavige is buying additional living premises here in Clearwater, Florida, because he is moving middle management back to Clearwater. And that makes perfect sense. Sometime here in the next week or two, I actually hope to do an interview with Janice talking about this subject even more. Because even in the short conversation I had with her about this, she told me some stuff about the flagship Apollo and that I had just literally never heard of before. And I'm like, how did I not know that? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, we gotta have a conversation about this. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. So guys, this would be terrible news for Clearwater, Florida. This would be absolutely terrible news for Clearwater, Florida. Now, it's not like anyone was under any illusions that even though Scientology is shrinking very rapidly, internationally and even domestically, worldwide, Scientology is down to only 26,000 members in the world. That is a 50% decline since 2005. So even though Scientology is very rapidly shrinking, nobody was actually under any illusions that Scientology was about to, give up and sell property in Clearwater, Florida. And anytime anyone local asks me about this, I'm like, look, even if and when Scientology gets to the point that they have to start liquidating properties, they have to start getting rid of stuff, I promise you, Clearwater, Florida is the absolute last place in the world they're going to cede ground. Clearwater, Florida will be the last place in literally the entire world that they will retreat. This is the crown jewel of David Miscavige's Scientology empire. It's also the most profitable base, Scientology base in the world, and it might possibly be the only truly profitable base in the Scientology world. I mean, when I was in the Sea Org in Los Angeles, we were barely breaking. I mean, we half the time we wouldn't even get paid. We didn't even have enough money left over to pay the Sea Org members $47 a week. And things are much more dire and desperate in Scientology today than they were when I left the Sea Org in 2006. The Flagland base might genuinely be the last profitable base in the world. So they're not going anywhere. And that this would be the last place they would ever retreat also reinforces one of the benefits for bringing middle management, what little there is left of Scientology management back to Clearwater, Florida. That is my prediction, guys. Now, this is not some leak from some inside source. If it was, I would actually tell you. This is actually just a prediction. Let me know what you guys think. And anyone's got some opinions on this, you can leave it in the live chat. You can leave it in the comment section. You can email me at growingupinScientology@gmail.com. All right, let's look at some comments. We'll keep this one short and sweet. I've got some other stuff I want to do this evening. George Massey, Aaron, do you have court this week? I have a court date this week. It's actually on Thursday. And I thought I had to be there. It turns out I do not.
Are you still wearing lame, limp, stinky socks? Once you try hollow socks, you'll throw away all your...
Great day not to be in a cult. All right. So speaking of being in a cult, the president of the Church of Scientology International died last night at the age of 90 years old. As far as the impact that this is going to have to Scientology itself, it's going to have an impact of 0. David Miscavige has been so completely effective in removing from post and from visibility every other Scientology executive who was broadly known and respected in Scientology. That even though on paper Heber Jensch has continued to be the president of the Church of Scientology as recently as just the last year or two, he has actually been effectively missing for over 15 years. Case in point, the SPTV Foundation was helping someone who had recently left the Sea organization. And I asked them what they thought. I asked them about Heber Jensch. When's the last time you saw Heber Jensch? What was your understanding of Heber Jensch? Did you wonder why Heber Jensch wasn't speaking at the events anymore? And this person said to me, "Who is Heber Jensch?" A person who was now in Scientology, anyone who works as a member of the Sea organization is by definition amongst staff members of the Church of Scientology. The fact that anyone could work in the Sea organization for years and never even have heard of Heber Jensch is actually quite scary. It paints a picture of the Scientology regime that is almost identical to what you encounter in a country like North Korea under a leader like Kim Jong-un, where information control is total and complete. And it also sort of showed how the very idea of succession or succession plan is something that simply doesn't exist in Scientology. The very concept of a succession plan is something that doesn't exist in Scientology. And I can tell you that from firsthand experience. People who are put in charge of large Scientology organizations, it's never even considered that some point this person would need to step down. They basically get worked until they die.